Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Greenfire Gardens. I'm Mr. Tom, and today we're going to talk about the importance of cover crops even for home gardeners. Right next to me, I have a field of rye, all right, and this is just one of our gardens, right? And last year, about the end of September, I seeded all of this with rye, and I gently raked it all in, and it has sprouted beautifully. It's now early May, all right. This crop is about 25 inches tall, and before we grow our crop, we're going to take this plant and we're going to mix it down into the soil. If you come in here close and you look at it, you can see that there's a nice thick stem on here, and then we have all of these green tops as well. Sometimes this is called a green manure crop. And the idea is that we take it and we mix it down into the soil to add organic matter. And we're just looking at the top of the plant. Right over here, I've dug a hole, right? And because I wanted to see how deep the roots went down on this, and as I dig out a piece of this rye, you can see that there is a lot of soil attached to the roots of this rye. And even as I tap on it, all right, some soil is coming off, but you can start to see a lot of root material here. So we're going to take this and we're going to go over to a bucket of water and we are going to wash the soil off of the roots. Right? And then we'll get an idea how long these roots are and how deep they actually penetrate the soil. So come on along and let's go wash this off in a bucket. So here's our piece of rye, all right, with the roots attached to it. And I'm just going to take a hose and I'm going to rinse it off, and you'll see some mud kind of coming off this. You don't want to do this in Mom's kitchen, right? Get a large part of it off of there. And then just start swishing it around in a bucket. And the bucket will turn very, very brown as the water starts to come off, or the soil starts to come off. I have two buckets here, right? And I kind of put my fingers in here, I don't tear it around. And then I'm gonna go from the first bucket over to the second bucket, and I will be able to see how much soil comes off by the color of the water. All right, so this is hanging down. Look how long those roots are. So my hand all the way across is 9 inches, and that is probably 3 or 4 inches longer than my hand. All right, these roots are going down into the soil almost a foot, and that's great because as this plant starts to decompose after we kill it by covering it or rototilling it, as these roots start to break down, those are going to be little tiny tubes down through the soil for water to permeate or to get down into the soil. Let's move right over here to this board, and I've taken several crops out and I have washed the soils off of them. So here's another piece of rye, all right, and you can see there's a lot of plant material under there that will decompose as well as the top part. Here's some clover. Now, clover is a legume and it's a perennial. It comes back, and so it has these woody roots on it. Not quite as deep, but these roots go all over the place, and clover also helps to put nitrogen back into the soil as well as bringing carbon down, right? And then just for interest, I took a piece of my lawn. So I dug this out of the grass, right? And you can see that these roots are much thicker, all right? But we probably have 50 little plants right here, and every one of those is going to make a set of roots. And then just for fun, I pulled out a dandelion, all right? People don't like dandelions in their lawn. We really have no problem with them because they add some certain benefits. We use them as part of our food. But here you see a plant with a taproot. Dandelions have a taproot, kind of like a carrot or a parsnip. And when a dandelion dies in the garden, this whole taproot also breaks down and gets more carbon into the soil. So you call them weeds, we call them flowers, all right? It's a dandelion. Now we're going to go over and we're going to look at how we actually pull a weed or don't pull a weed so that we don't cause more problems in our garden. Okay. Now we're back out in the garden, and this is one of our permaculture beds. So with the permaculture beds, I remember what I saw with the rye, and the rye is a grass. So I have a clump of quackgrass right here, several other types of weeds, but I know that these grasses are deep rooted. So when it comes time to get this out of the garden, the first thing we want to do is pull it, and people say, well, make sure you pull the whole thing and you get all the roots out. Well, here's the problem when I do that. When I pull all those roots out, I get this big root mass. Even if I knock the soil off of it, I have just exposed probably 1,000 weed seeds. right? So I really don't want to be yanking these big grasses out of here. So when people say you got to get the weeds when they're little, that's really good advice because these roots haven't developed yet and you can kill it easily. So now that I've pulled this, I see some pretty dirt, but I can't even see the thousands of weed seeds that I've just exposed. Now we also have weeds that are more right on the surface. They're not a big problem, all right? I can just pull those away. Here's some more clover right here. This is New Zealand white clover, and next to it is another clump of grass. If I pull that, I just exposed another 1,000 weed seeds. So the best thing for me to do this in a non-chemical manner is just cover it. Lay a board over it, lay some black plastic on it, put something on top of it so the light can't get to it. Do it a few weeks before you plant, and it'll die just because of lack of light. Right? And that works much better than pulling weeds. Nobody likes to pull weeds, so we do everything we can to avoid it around here. Now I am at a bed that has been fully tilled. So this wouldn't really be a permaculture bed, but I plan to grow carrots here. And if carrots don't have really loose, deep soil underneath them, you're going to get a lot of forked carrots and have a lot of problems. So I went through here with that blue rototiller you saw me using before. And watch what happens. Now this is in its 5th year of gardening here. I can take my hand and I can push it right down in there. We've been adding compost to this for 5 years straight, all right? And a lot of organic matter in here, but it's nice and deep and loose. I can stick my hands right down through it. And this is from one pass through here with that blue rototiller. But again, I only do this for crops that really require, like a carrot that's going to go down really deep. All right, so guys, the things to remember when we're working on getting our gardens and ready and getting our soil. You don't need to till really deeply except for crops that require it, like a carrot or like a parsnip. Most of the time, what we want to do is keep that soil structure in place. Right? Cover crops will help to hold our soil in place and add a lot of carbon back into the soil throughout the winter, and then in the spring we can either grind it in with a tiller or we can just crush it down and put a board or black plastic over it and let it rot down into the soil. Right? A little bit of preparation goes a long way, and just think of it like this. There's carbon dioxide in the air. We want to get carbon dioxide out of the air because we probably have too much of it there. One of the best ways to do it is through green plants that are going to put the carbon back into the soil, and then the carbon actually helps our next group of plants grow. All right, so think about cover crops, think about your soils. All right, it's not just dirt. All right, so I'm Mr. Tom. Thanks for joining us here at Greenfire Gardens today, and hope you learned a little bit about getting your soils ready for your crops.